Welcome to the Old West, a land of rugged cowboys, daring outlaws, and endless, dusty frontiers, a place where legends were born and myths were made. But while we've all heard the tales of gunfights and saloon brawls, beneath the surface lies a darker, more mysterious side to the Wild West. Today, we're setting off on a journey through time, unraveling 10 of the most baffling mysteries that still defy explanation. We'll explore the lost treasures, infamous outlaws, and eerie disappearances that blur the lines between history and legend. So, strap on your spurs and grab your hat, because we're about to ride deep into the unknown, starting with one of the most famous outlaws of them all, Butch Cassidy. Our first stop takes us to the story of Butch Cassidy, a name that echoes through the canyons of Western lore like a gunshot in the night. Hollywood tells us that Butch and his partner, the Sundance Kid, met a bloody end in Bolivia, surrounded by enemy fire. But is that the truth? Or just a convenient ending? Let's dig a little deeper. Cassidy's sister, Lula, wasn't buying the story of her brother's demise. According to her, and several other credible witnesses, Butch was seen alive and well years after his so-called death. Imagine that. Cassidy, the charming outlaw, sneaking back to the US for a family reunion in 1925, casually mingling with relatives. It sounds crazy, right? But Lula swore it happened. And then there's the official version, the Bolivian shootout. Recent research suggests that the whole thing might have been a carefully crafted tale. Even the Bolivian president, René Barrientos, conducted his own investigation and concluded the story could be a fabrication. Meanwhile, the Pinkerton Detective Agency kept hunting for Butch long after 1908, convinced he had slipped through their fingers. Could Butch Cassidy have faked his death, escaped to a new life, and left a trail of half-truths behind him? Or did he really meet his end in a hail of bullets? One thing's for sure, the legend of Butch Cassidy is as elusive as the man himself. Now let's head southwest to the land of the Apache. Our next mystery revolves around Chief Kosis, a formidable leader whose name still strikes fear in the hearts of settlers and soldiers alike. The history books tell us little about Kosis's early years, but by the mid-19th century, he had risen to become a key figure in the fight against encroaching settlers. Kosis was a master of guerrilla warfare, leading his band with tactical brilliance. But when he died in 1874, his final resting place became one of the Old West's most enduring mysteries. His burial site, somewhere in the Dragoon Mountains, was kept secret by those closest to him, and to this day, no one knows exactly where it is. There are stories. Of course, there are always stories. Some claim that Kosis was buried with his horse and dog to serve him in the afterlife, while others say these were measures to keep his grave hidden forever. Was his burial kept secret to protect his remains from enemies, or was it a spiritual decision to keep him close to his land? Treasure hunters and historians have searched the Dragoon Mountains for decades, but the truth remains hidden beneath the rocky terrain. The final resting place of Chief Kosis continues to be one of the greatest unsolved riddles of the Old West. Could it be out there, waiting for someone with just the right map or the right kind of luck to find it? Our next stop brings us to the Sierra Nevada, home to one of the greatest lost treasures of all time, the lost cement mine. Picture this. It's 1857. Two prospectors, weary from their journey through the rugged mountains, stumble upon a glittering deposit in the ground. They've found gold, a whole lot of it, but their celebration is short-lived. One of the men falls ill and dies before he can reveal the exact location of their incredible discovery. But that's just one version of the story. Another, courtesy of Mark Twain himself, describes three German brothers who accidentally found the mine while hiding out in the mountains. Different stories, same conclusion. An elusive mother lode, rich with gold, hidden somewhere in the California wilderness. And so began the legend. Treasure hunters, fortune seekers, and dreamers flocked to the Sierra Nevada, hoping to find the lost cement mine. Some claimed to have seen the red, gold-filled rocks. Others swore they were close. But no one has ever found the definitive spot. Could it still be out there, waiting for just the right person to strike it rich? Or was it all just a fever dream spun from the minds of desperate men? The search continues, and so does the mystery. Now, from hidden treasure to a man who found his fortune in a much darker way. Let's talk about Jean-Baptiste, the infamous gravedigger of Salt Lake City, who wasn't just digging graves, he was robbing them too. When local authorities raided his home, they discovered hundreds of items of clothing and personal effects stolen from the dead. Baptiste's punishment was severe exile to a tiny barren island in the middle of the Great Salt Lake. No boat, no escape. At least, that's what they thought. But 3 weeks later, when the guards went back to check on him, Baptiste was gone. Did he drown in the icy waters of the lake? Or did he somehow manage to escape? Some say a human skull found years later at the mouth of the Jordan River might belong to him. Others believe he built a makeshift raft from his shack and disappeared into the wilderness. The most outlandish theory? That Baptiste reappeared years later, his face disfigured and his ears cut off, marked with the words branded for robbing the dead. Could this be the same man? Or just another ghost story from the Old West? Like so many tales of that era, the truth about Jean-Baptiste is likely to remain buried, just like the bodies he once robbed. Next up, we're diving into the contentious case of Tom Horn, a name that still raises eyebrows in the West. Horn was a man of many hats: cowboy, scout, bounty hunter, and, some would argue, cold-blooded killer. But was he really guilty, or was he set up to take the fall? The story goes that Tom Horn was hired to track down cattle rustlers in Wyoming, but things took a turn when 14-year-old Willie Nickel was found dead. Horn, known for his ruthless methods, was accused of the crime, and a drunken confession, coerced or real, sealed his fate. But here's the twist. Years after Horn was hanged, a mock trial found him not guilty based on the same evidence. Some believe Horn was framed, caught in a web of political intrigue and frontier justice. Others think he was a convenient scapegoat for a crime he didn't commit. The debate over Tom Horn's guilt or innocence still rages on, and the mystery of who really killed Willie Nickel remains unsolved. Was he a victim of circumstance, or the right man for the wrong crime? Sometimes, in the Wild West, the truth is as elusive as a ghost in the wind. Now, let's venture to New Mexico, where one of the Old West's most baffling disappearances took place. In 1896, Albert Fountain, a man with more titles than a Western dime novel, vanished without a trace. Fountain was a former Union soldier, a state senator, and a fierce prosecutor of cattle rustlers. And that may have been what got him killed. Fountain and his young son Henry were last seen traveling through the desert. Witnesses saw them followed by a group of riders, and then nothing. No bodies, no ransom notes, just a blood-stained handkerchief and an abandoned wagon. Many have been accused of the crime, including prominent landowners and even U.S. Marshals, but no one was ever convicted. Theories range from political assassination to a vendetta by cattle rustlers, but the truth remains elusive. The mystery of Albert Fountain and his son has become a haunting reminder of the dangers that came with living and standing up for what's right in the Wild West. Our next mystery centers around Henry Plummer, who may just be the most controversial sheriff in Old West history. Plummer arrived in Bannock, Montana with a dark past and quickly set up shop as the law, except some say he was running his own gang of thieves on the side. Stories abound of Plummer using his badge to protect his criminal operations. He supposedly hid gold, lots of it, all over Montana, in places like Birdtail Rock and along Cottonwood Creek. But no gold was ever found. Was he a crook in disguise, or simply a lawman trying to make a buck in a hard place? Plummer was eventually hanged by vigilantes, but his rumored treasure has never surfaced. Could it still be out there, waiting to be discovered? Or is it just another tall tale from a time when the truth was as fluid as a desert mirage? Now to one of the more shadowy figures of the Old West, Quo, a man shrouded in mystery, legend, and fear. Quo was either a ruthless outlaw or a victim of circumstance, depending on who you ask. Born with a mixed heritage, Quo found himself branded an outsider from the start, and his life only got stranger from there. Accused of countless murders, he became the boogeyman of the frontier, with a bounty on his head and legends swirling around him like desert dust. But was he really guilty of all the crimes he was blamed for? Or was he simply a scapegoat in a time of wild accusations and little evidence? In 1940, a mummified body thought to be Quo's was found near Hoover Dam. But even in death, his story remains a riddle. Who was Quo? A murderer, a myth, or something in between? Like many of the West's great mysteries, his story defies a simple explanation. Few names are as synonymous with revolution and rebellion as Pancho Villa. His death in 1923 was sudden and violent, but what came next is even more bizarre. 3 years after his burial, Villa's grave was robbed and his head was stolen. Why? Who would do such a thing? Some claim it was the work of a secret society, Yale's infamous Skull and Bones, looking for the ultimate trophy. Others think it was rivals, hoping to erase Villa's legacy. And some believe his widow took his remains to protect them from further desecration. Theories range from the sinister to the surreal, but one thing is for certain: Villa's head, and much of his body, is still missing, leaving us with more questions than answers. His story reminds us that even in death, legends never truly rest. And finally, our last mystery. A story straight out of a fever dream. Imagine a Spanish galleon, stranded in the middle of the Colorado desert. Sound impossible? Maybe, but there are stories, lots of them. In the late 19th century, several explorers claimed to have seen a ship's hull, half buried in the sand, glittering with untold riches. Some say it was a pirate vessel, others a treasure ship blown off course and lost to the desert forever. Geologists argue that the Salton Sink, a massive depression that has periodically filled with water over the ages, could explain how a ship ended up so far inland, but no hard evidence has ever been found, and the desert keeps its secrets well. Could the lost ship of the desert be real, or is it just a mirage, a trick of the mind conjured by the shimmering heat? As with all great mysteries, the thrill is in the chase. So, there you have it. 10 mysteries of the Old West that refuse to be solved. Each one is a puzzle piece in the grand tapestry of our history, a story waiting to be told, a truth waiting to be uncovered. The Wild West was a land of danger, adventure, and intrigue, where fact and fiction danced together in the hot desert sun. And while we may never know the full story behind these unsolved mysteries, they continue to fascinate, tantalize, and challenge us to this day. So keep your eyes sharp and your mind open, because who knows? The next clue might just be waiting right around the corner. Thanks for watching, and if you want to be notified of new videos like this, don't forget subscribe to our channel and join us as we continue to explore the secrets of the past that still linger in the shadows.